Hello everybody and welcome to a new video. For the first video in a long time. 2024 was not a good year for me, but regardless, let's not talk about that. So today I'm going to be unboxing the Nintendo Switch 2, which just came out a few days ago on the 5th. But first, just like my PS5 and Xbox Series X unboxings a few years ago, I'm going to go over the history of Nintendo consoles. Now, the first Nintendo console I don't have. It was a Japanese-only console called the Color TV Game 6. The Color TV game, really. Released first on June 1st, 1977. There's a couple of others, like the 15 on June 8th. The Racing 112 on June 8, 1978, Block Breaker on April 23, 1979, and Computer TV Game, released in 1980. These were all just dedicated consoles with games built into them, no cartridges or discs or anything. This was the 70s and 80s, so. In total, they sold about 3 million units. The next system, which I also don't have, is the Game & Watch. So there's a whole bunch of them. These were basically handheld electronic games with one game per each system. They were all released between 1980 and 1991, and they sold 43.4 million units. Now, I'm also going to put the startup boot animations for these consoles into this video. The first few don't have any. Neither does the next few. But some add-ons do have startup sequences, and so I'm going to use those instead. Starting with this guy. The original Nintendo Entertainment System, released in 1983 actually. It released in 1983 as the Famicom in Japan. But because of a horrible crash in 1983 going on here in America, it didn't release out here until 1985. Now, I didn't unplug the controller because it wants to be stuck in there. I think that's just the fact that all my wired controllers have an extension cord plugged into them so I can be far away from the TV. But this is the controller. Very basic, just a D-pad, 2 buttons, and select and start. This is where your game goes. This is your on-off button, your reset button. There's your AV out and your audio. Then you have your RF, your channel 3/4 switch, and your power connector right there. This is the original NES. The top loader, as it's called, was released in 1993. The exact day that this thing was released was July 15th, 1983. I should point that out. I'm literally using a DS with PictoChat as notes. So, I think that's a brilliant idea by me. Next up is the Game Boy, and yes, my NES is on the side, like that. I hope to have all the consoles displayed here. Highly doubt I'll be able to though. Well, for one particular exception in particular. This is the Game Boy, released on April 21st, 1989. The Pocket model was released in 1996, and the Light model was released on April 14th, 1998. You could also argue that there was another model, but I consider it its own system. Don't ask what happened here. It doesn't look very good. Also your volume knob. Your power switch is up here. You got a port here, DC in, and then your contrast knob. Your game goes in here. I had Donkey Kong 94, I think is what's called in here. Yeah. And if you're worrying about my NES, it's leaning up against something. So even shaking it, the table, is not going to do anything. Plus there's going to be a bunch of other systems next to it. So the sales numbers of this thing, because of the Game Boy Color, Nintendo wanting to consider it as just another model, we're going to assume that it sold around 118.69 million units. Although that's definitely not correct. Next up is the Super Nintendo, or the Super Famicom, as known in the Sunrise Kingdom. First released on November 21st, 1990. It was eventually released in 91 out here. You got the power switch here, eject button, your reset switch. Your game goes in here, here. Controller ports. Well, at the bottom of the NES has this too. I didn't even think of showing that. The Super Nintendo has an expansion port on the bottom, and so does the original NES. Neither of which were used out here, although in Japan, the original console, it was used for an add-on like the Disk System. Or wait, no. That used the cartridge slot, I think. Never mind. Whatever, I don't know what I'm talking about. But I'm not sure what it was used for on the Super Nintendo. But on the back, you have your AC, your channel 3/4 switch, your RF out, and your AV multi out. Also, if you want to know how to install or whatever you call this number, I highly doubt it actually works. I'm not trying it. My phone is being used to record anyways. This is the controller. A bit of an upgrade. There was also a miniature version of the console released in 1997. That's about it. One of the better ones of Nintendo's lineup, if you ask me. Okay, next up, this one's pretty big. The Virtual Boy, released on July 21st, 1995. Portable? I don't think so. What is this thing? There's no strap. I can't even get it all in shot. It displayed red and black, and that was it. Yeah, it was a failure. It was literally just to hold you over for the next system. That was it. Literally it. That was its purpose. Oh, some stuff on the bottom. There's a volume knob on the bottom. The headphone jack on this side. The other side is the controller port. Expansion port. That's probably used for multiplayer. Your game cartridge slot is here. So this is the controller, 2 D-pads, you never see that these days, and back then. Your battery pack or AC adapter plugged into the bottom. Oh, there's 2 buttons back here, and there's the on-off switch. This, again, everything power plugs into the controller. I have no room to put this thing on the desk for all the other systems. So it's just going to have to go somewhere else, not on camera. Next up is the N64. So you got your cartridge slot up here, your reset button here, your on-off switch here, 4 controller ports for the first time in Nintendo's history anyways. So 4-player multiplayer was huge on this. Also, you have an expansion port. In Japan, this was used for the 64 disk system, or disk drive, or something like that. But no such thing was released out here. 3 main home consoles in a row, and they all have an expansion port that was never used. And if it was used in Japan, it was used for something that didn't sell well. There is a memory expansion here, which is used for like 2 games, some of which are just the most popular on the system, so you may as well have it. You got the AV multi-out here, and your power supply, literally power supply, plugs into here. I always thought this was really interesting. I never saw this in anyone's YouTube videos about this, so when I first got this, I looked at that thing and I was like, what in the heck is that? Why is there a giant hole in the back of my N64? Yeah, that's where the power goes into. So, as the usual somebody who doesn't pay attention to his notes even though they're in front of him, the console was released on June 23rd, 1996, and it sold 32.93 million units. The controller is also an interesting thing, almost like the power supply. Now, I want to say that this is not an official N64 controller. I'm 99% sure that this is a knockoff. Anyways, it's designed like one, so here it is. Very interesting design. You can hold it like this, or if the game is crazy, this. And yeah. There was apparently like a weird phenomenon when people like did this with their hand all the time. There's also the expansion port here for things like the Game Boy Transfer Pack. I'm not really the biggest fan of this controller. I always thought this was interesting. The next console, as I said when I was talking about the Game Boy, I like to fight with Nintendo over whether this is just another Game Boy model or if it's its own thing. It's the Game Boy Color. I think it's its own thing. There's too many Game Boy Color exclusive games. Because of that, this is not really like a PS4 Pro to PS4 or Xbox One X to Xbox One type deal. It's got the same buttons, the same everything, except it's just a color screen. Now I have a question, Nintendo. Why didn't you make this backlit? You released the Game Boy Light model of this on the same year, which was October 21st, 1998. But this doesn't have a light. The fancy Game Boy Color doesn't have a light? I don't know what y'all are thinking. It's just the same battery compartment here. It's just the same. Just with color. So from one Game Boy to the next, on March 21st, 2001, we have the Game Boy Advance. I have the SP model. I actually have both the SP001, which is this, which was released on February 14, 2003. I also have an SP101 model, which was released in 2005. But I'm pretty sure the 101 I bought is a horrible clamshell redesign that I don't feel like showing on here. Whoever I bought it from is stupid. And there's also the Micro, which was released on September 13, 2005. So the original Game Boy, also, just like the Color, did not have a backlit screen or a front lit one, just no lit up screen at all. Yeah, so the Color didn't have one, the Advance didn't have one, but both the SP models do. And this is the ultimate Game Boy right here. The 101 model is anyways, because that one has the best lit screen ever. You have your cartridge slot on the bottom, your battery, your charger, your other port here, your 2 triggers, which is really the only new thing in terms of buttons on the GBA. Because other than that, it's literally just the same in terms of buttons. your volume knob, your power switch. That's about it for the Game Boy Advance. Obviously, it was just a lot more powerful. The next thing is gonna be the Gamecube. It has a handle. It's a box. It's a lunchbox. The Gamecube was released on September 14th, 2001. Interestingly, there is a super rare Panasonic Cube model of this thing, which was released on December 14th, 2001. The GBA sold 81.51 million units. Why do I keep glossing over that? It's on my thing right here. The disc goes on top. I do have the Game Boy Player attachment. Got your reset button over here. Your power button here. So again, ignoring this is the Game Boy Player, not original to the system. You have your memory card slots, which I have one here. Your 4 controller ports. You got the fan on this side. And then, okay, so some models do not have this port. But if you're going for a GameCube, it's always recommended to go for one that does have this port. Because this is how you get component out. I use this port. I don't have official Nintendo cables, unfortunately. Component cables anyways. Because everything relating to the GameCube seems to be way overpriced. I don't know why. Anyways, multi out here, power here. I also have a broadband adapter thing on the side here, so we'll ignore that too. So this is Nintendo's first console to use discs, which it's not the same size disc, so honestly, at the time when this thing was new, everything was just adding up to being outsold by both the PlayStation 2 and the new kid on the block, the OG Xbox. How embarrassing. I'm sorry, I don't mean to diss on the GameCube. It's looked back on as a great system, but wow. Anyways, here's its controller. Why the C-stick like that? Why C-stick like that, Tendo? Why Tendo? Why? Also, only one shoulder button. That's strange, but there are 2 bigger triggers, I mean. Very interesting controller choice, too. Definitely a better choice than the N64 one, though. And it sold 21.74 million units. The next console, which is the Pokémon Mini, I don't have. It was released on November 16, 2001. Tiny handheld. Its sales numbers I could not find. So we're going to move on to the next console, which is a handheld. More specifically, one that was inspired by some of the aforementioned Game & Watch consoles. It's the DS. This is the DS Lite model. I have an original DS, which is what I'm using for notes. DS was released on November 21st, 2004. The Lite was released on March 2nd, 2006. The DSi was released on November 1st, 2008. And the DSi XL was released on November 21st, 2009. It's a dual-screen handheld. The DS would sell 154.02 million units, becoming the second best-selling console behind the PlayStation 2. Soon it might be the third best-selling, though. 4 buttons, D-pad, start select. You're compatible with Game Boy Advance only, unlike the original GBA, which was compatible with all the Game Boys. I never mentioned that for some reason. The DS cartridge slot, your charger port. The original DS uses the Game Boy Advance charging port, which is interesting. Headphone jack with another mysterious port next to it. Your volume knob, or slider actually. Triggers, Very good system. This is a touchscreen on the bottom, normal on the top. And yeah, you can tell I was a kid with this one. In fact, interestingly, even my GPA has it too. It's the same thing. Good system, very popular system. Especially when the light model came out. Next up, let's move this back here. Next up is the Nintendo Wii. This was released on November 19, 2006. The Family Edition I could not find a release date for. This is the original model though. The Family Edition was meant to be laid on its side like this, and so things like the text on the front of the console, like Wii, eject, reset, and power, these were all be displayed so that you could read it like this. And then there's the Mini, which we don't talk about the Mini, but that was released on December 7th, 2012, and we don't talk about it. Why? Because it removed so many features to the point where it's not even worth it. So you got your buttons I was just talking about there. You also have this flap, which reveals the sync button and the SD card slot. There's your disc. Your disc goes in there. This side might not look like anything, and don't mind it being a little dirty, but this model had Gamecube compatibility, and it's the only model that has Gamecube compatibility. So you have the memory cards and controller ports for the Gamecube. The back has two USB ports, the fan, the sensor bar port up there, AV out here, and your power input. These were its controllers, basically. I'm not really going to mention too many accessories in this video, but honestly, what's a Wiimote without a nunchuck? If I had more notes than just release dates, console names, and units sold on my notes, I would say more. But this is not supposed to be going in depth to each individual console. This is supposed to be a Switch 2 unboxing, so let's move on. The next system, so the Wii sold 101.63 million units. I'm just a sucker at forgetting stuff. The 3DS is the next system. This is the new 3DS XL model. Yes, that is correct. The 3DS released on February 26, 2011. The XL, the regular XL model, released on July 28, 2012. The 2DS on October 12, 2013. Yes, that's a 3DS model. The new 3DS released on October 25th, 2014. The new 3DS XL released on October 11th, 2014. And the new 2DS XL released on June 15th, 2017. Wow. A whole lot of 3DS. 75.94 million units were sold. Not as well as the original DS, obviously. Despite the fact this has DS compatibility. The 3D switch here, I don't really use it. Some models have this, the C stick or whatever it's called. And there's this, your D-pad, your buttons, start and select. Again, bottom's touchscreen is your home screen here. Power, your stylus. Oh yeah, the original DS had a stylus. Who didn't lose the original DS stylus? It's always about the original DS too. I'm sure it's the same for the 3DS, but no one talks about that. Your cartridge slot here, headphones, charger on top, a bunch of triggers. And yeah, that's that for the 3DS. Alright, so I just had to transfer a 16 gigabyte video. The entire video you've watched up to this point is 16 gigabytes. That's why I had to stop the recording. That's why there's probably a camera angle change. But anyways, the next console, before we get 16 more gigabytes, is the Wii U. I kept the stands on this guy because I can. Yeah, I have the vertical stands because I have no room in that spot that I put this in my entertainment center. The Wii U came out on November 18, 2012, and it sold 13.56 million units. That's all there is to say about it. Bye-bye. Just kidding. There's the disk drive there. So you have your red sync button here, and then there's your SD card, 2 USB ports. Your power's over here, your eject button's up there. It says Wii U on the side. There's 2 USB ports, HDMI, an AV multi-out again. I didn't even know they had that all the way up to now. And then there's the Wii center bar port. There's really nothing to say about the Wii U. I didn't realize that I completely skipped over the Wii U gamepad. So here's the Wii U gamepad. It's a precursor to what's next, the Switch. And since I already went through the Wii U and decided to move on, this port is for nothing. This is interesting. And it's got a TV button. I'm assuming this was meant to control TVs at one point. The next console I don't have. I'm actually going to go to 2 consoles that I don't have. They are both the NES Classic and the SNES Classic. All the SNES Classic actually came out after the Switch, but we're going to cover it now anyways. The NES Classic released on November 10th, 2016. A dedicated console that released with 30 games built into it. It sold 3.6 million units. The Super Nintendo Classic came out on September 29th, 2017. It had 21 games, including Star Fox 2, so a Super Nintendo game was only released on the Super Nintendo Classic. It sold 5.28 million units. The next system is the Nintendo Switch 1, as we're now going to call it. I didn't bring my dock out. I do use the dock more than I do in handheld mode. The Joy-Cons, I'm sure you know, they come off. The Switch 1 came out on March 3rd, 2017. It came out on March 3rd, 2017. The Switch Lite model, don't get that model, came out on September 20th, 2019. The OLED came out on October 10th, 2021. The OLED model also came with a new variant of the dock to include an Ethernet port on the dock. This is Nintendo's first hybrid console, but the Switch 1 so far has sold 152.13 million units. It is on track to become the best-selling game console of all time. It's on track to surpass the DS and PlayStation 2. This Joy-Con has the plus, this, your buttons, one analog stick, your home button. This one's got this, your share button, which I forget, is it hold for 30-second videos and double tap for screenshot? Or the other way around, something like that. This is where your game cartridge goes in, your headphone jack's here, exhaust, whatever's there, your volume, power buttons here. The back has your kickstand. The original model is crap, don't use it. This is, well, I'm going to call it your charger port, but it's also your dock port, and that's probably what you're going to be using it for, so put it into your dock. Now let's finally move on to the Switch 2. Alright, it is now the moment that you have all been waiting for. Unfortunately, I can't have the Switch 1 here, it just wants to fall over, so this is it. The Nintendo Switch 2. This came out on June 5th, 2025. It is another hybrid console. The sales are obviously not going to be known yet, but it's already estimated to have sold millions. Sources I've looked at say 3 million. Mind you, it's what, June 7th, 8th right now, I think? So basically 3 days-ish since launch, and it's already sold that much. That's insane. I have not watched any unboxing videos of this. So I hope that everything is here is right, and I'm not going to actually get a whole box of rocks. So let's hope not. That'd be insane. I'd also like to not rip this box. Oh. Is it open like that? No. No way. Oh, that is weird. What in... Okay. So, right. That was the console that I just saw almost slip out. Good news is, I don't have a box of rocks. Ooh. There it is. Look at that. It's now going to have fingerprints the moment I pull it out. Wow. That looks awesome. Every time you get a new console, you just have to go, wow. Especially if it just came out. We got the Joy-Con 2 Joy-Cons. So we got the left Joy. And then the right Joy-Con. It's obviously not all. Because, well, there's a dock in here too that I am aware of. Oh yeah, the Switch 1 Joy-Cons have these buttons too on the side. I totally glossed over that. So I'm going to assume that... Okay, yep, they're magnetic. So how do you get it out? That's how you do it? Ah, okay. So, there's this... Yeah, I see. Okay. So it just attaches like that. I thought that was another trigger. I was like, what in the crap are they thinking? No. That's how it is. Dang, this thing's actually kind of big. If I can move this over for a moment. Let's do a comparison, okay? This is the original Switch model, not the OLED, which is slightly bigger. There. That's pretty big. So let's look at the console itself. Obviously you got your port on the bottom here, which is probably used for your dock. Now you're probably screaming and yelling at me wondering, why didn't you get the Mario Kart World bundle? Look, do you see this? You see my hand here? Do you see all this back here? I'm a physical game nerd, okay? When this first got revealed, I had no idea if the Mario Kart World bundle was going to come with a physical cartridge or if it was going to be a digital download. Turns out a friend of mine said that, yeah, it's a digital download. So I said, well, I actually, before that, said I was going to get the regular bundle, but it was a right call because my friend told me later on that it is in fact a digital code. The other thing too, first party Switch 2 games are going to be all on the cartridge, whereas third party ones aren't, contrary to the Switch 1 where basically every cartridge was like that for the most part that I know of. That's not going to be a problem for me because I'm not going to buy third party multi-platform games on Switch 2 because that'd be a mistake. I have Xbox and PS5 and PC for all that. I have better options at my disposal. There is a second USB-C port on the top of the console. I forgot to mention this about the Switch 1. The Switch 1 does have a micro SD slot. I don't know where that is on this one. This looks to be your kickstand, which there is, of course, the game card slot. This system still uses cartridges, just like the Switch 1. There's more to this box than that, though, so let's keep digging. This feels like it's got some more weight to it. So let's look in here before I move on. Okay, so a health and safety information usage guidelines thingy. Let's put that there. An HDMI cable, which is really short. I'm probably going to use my own. These would be straps that you'd strap on to your wrist when you're swinging the thing around. The Joy-Con tubes. I'm actually going to put those back in here for now. I don't even think I'll use these. I don't even use them on the Switch 1 Joy-Cons. What is this? Oh, I didn't even think it would come with this. Oh. I thought I was going to have to buy one of these separately. So, yes, by the way, I do not have a Switch 2 game. Yet. I am going to have to go out and buy Mario Kart World. Well, sweet. I did not think that I was going to get that. I'm assuming that's the AC adapter? Which it is, and it's really tiny, and that's nice to see. This is interesting. I don't know. You probably plug that into something. Okay, it turns out that something is... Oh my god, are you serious? Why is that so short? Wow. That might be a problem for me. That is a really short cable. I might be going crazy. But hopefully this isn't actually that short. We'll do what I can. I'm going to try and circumvent that problem. This might be the last thing in here. And it looks like it is. It's the dock. This dock has vent holes. Whoa. Interesting. So obviously you got your two twist my hand like that. Two USB ports like that. The console will obviously slot into here. And where is it at? There. Come on. Oh, it just comes straight off. Okay. Nice. It has a built-in Ethernet port down there. It's right here is the Ethernet. Then there's your HDMI and your other port. Alright, well that's the Switch 2 unboxing. Now I gotta hook it up to the TV somehow. And I hook all these other consoles back up too, so that's gonna be fun. I know I was originally going to hook this up first, but I think I'll do this now. I'll set the thing up somehow. Ooh. Try and get it at a good angle where you guys can see it. Ironically, this actually reminds me of like Windows XP. I don't know why. Did I not just choose English US and you don't like region? The Americas. User agreement. Alright, this is the internet connection. Probably got down the day one update. Give me a minute here. I want to give you guys my information. Alright. About to download update. Whoa. Time zone. With Nintendo Switch 2, you can play games wherever you want, however you want. Basic like the Switch 1, no different. Okay, so that port's also used for charging. Touch the right Joy-Con. Left one. Okay, I am filming a vid. This is awkward. I would love to connect to a TV right now. We'll do that later. I can basically figure this out on myself. Yeah, okay. Update the system. Now it's restarting. System update complete. And y'all really can't see that. Like, you can transfer data from your Switch 1 to this Switch 2. Alright, so I backed out. I'm not going to do the system transfers. I want to use both switches. And I don't want transferring data from one to the other and use up so much space that I don't need to be using. So I'm going to do the regular option. Okay, now I'm signed in my Nintendo account. At least add user data, it seems. User added the system. What's next? I don't have more than just one person. He asked me to set parental controls. Why? I don't have one of those for Switch 2 just yet. To go to the home menu, press the home button. Yeah. This menu is literally almost identical to a Switch 1. Focusing on that. Almost identical to a Switch 1. What are we, Microsoft? Game Chat's new. That is not on the Switch 1. I'll set everything up on my TV when I get it hooked up to that. Dock, oh my, really? Dock update? That's a thing? No way. That is stupid. What's it doing? Just outputting video to the TV? Why do you need a software update for that? Look, man, if the Switch 1 didn't need it, why don't the Switch 2? Anyways, I'm going to hook this up to the TV now as well as all these other things. Put them back in my entertainment unit, so see you there. Alright, that is it. I have it hooked up to my TV and I got the Gamecube thing installed. I would show you where I put the console and set it up, but my setup's a bit of a mess. I might make another game setup video in the future, but in order to do that, I had to dust off a lot of stuff. I also just noticed that the right Joy-Con has a game chat button. It's interesting. Let's see what this Nintendo Switch 2 only thing has going for it. Okay, this is interesting. So it's 3 games, but they give you the American and the European version. F-Zero GX, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, and Soul Calibur 2. But yeah, that's interesting. I don't know why they'd give you 2 different versions. That's interesting though. So that's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you all sometime later. Bye!